Let's begin with the definition. The term steroid taper is referring to gradually reducing the dose of the corticosteroid over a period of time instead of stopping it abruptly. So for example, let's say this patient was on 40 milligrams daily of prednisone. Let's say the team wants to stop the drug. Instead of telling the patient to stop taking the drug completely immediately, we will reduce the dose over time. So 30 milligrams first week, then 20 milligrams daily for the second week, and then the patient will stop at a lower dose than started. This is a steroid taper. So now the question is, why do we taper steroids? In order to understand why we do this, let's review the system that regulates the production of cortisol in the body. Cortisol is our body's natural hormone, while corticosteroids are the synthetic versions of cortisol, and they mimic the effects. Cortisol production is regulated by the hypothalamic-pituitary-adrenal axis, HPA axis, which is a negative feedback system. The HPA axis gets activated when there is some kind of stress. This can be fear, anxiety, injury, or even an infection. Also, the HPA axis can be activated due to the body's circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm is a natural internal process that regulates the sleep-wake cycle and other physiological processes over a roughly 24-hour period. It is influenced mainly by light and darkness in the environment and helps synchronize the body's functions with the day and night cycle. Cortisol levels peak in the morning to prepare the body to wake up and be active. Once HPA axis is activated, the hypothalamus releases corticotropin-releasing hormone, or CRH. CRH travels to the anterior pituitary gland, prompting it to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. ACTH stimulates the adrenal cortex, specifically the zona fasciculata, to produce and release cortisol into the bloodstream. Cortisol has several functions in the bloodstream. So as mentioned before, cortisol is released in response to stress. It does this by increasing the blood glucose through a process known as gluconeogenesis, a metabolic process by which the body produces glucose from non-carbohydrate sources like proteins and fats. 2. Cortisol has an anti-inflammatory effect, which helps to reduce inflammation by suppressing the immune system. This is why we use synthetic steroids like prednisone for inflammatory conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, ulcerative colitis, and lupus. Next, cortisol helps maintain blood pressure by enhancing the vasoconstrictive effects of catecholamines like epinephrine and norepinephrine. As previously discussed, cortisol also plays a role in the regulation of the circadian rhythm. Next, cortisol regulates gastric acid by indirectly stimulating the production of gastrin, a hormone that promotes the secretion of gastric acid. Lastly, cortisol has a negative effect on the bone health by suppressing the activity of osteoblast and indirectly promoting the osteoclast activity. And yes, this occurs even under normal circumstances, although the effect becomes more pronounced in chronic stress or with high levels of cortisol, like in Cushing's syndrome, or from long-term corticosteroid use. The reason why cortisol has this effect is because it's the stress hormone, and once it's released, it engages in resource allocation and redirects energy from long-term maintenance, like bone growth, to immediate needs like glucose production during stressful situations. So what led to the concept of steroid taper started with patients who were on long-term corticosteroids. So you may see different cutoffs in clinical literature, but generally when we say a patient is on long-term corticosteroids, it means that the patient has been receiving more than 30 days with doses greater than 5 milligrams daily of prednisone or prednisone equivalent if patient is on a different steroid. Long-term use of corticosteroids causes a negative feedback which leads to reduced activity of the HPA axis, or we like to call it in clinical practice HPA axis suppression. This occurs because of the constant elevated level of the corticosteroid in the blood, which is technically behaving like cortisol. So it's like having elevated levels of cortisol in the blood. This will trigger a negative feedback where there is a decrease in the CRH from the hypothalamus, which will lead lead to a decrease in the ACTH from the pituitary gland and decrease the stimulation of the adrenal glands. Now, while the HPA axis is suppressed, an abrupt discontinuation of the steroid leads to some unwanted consequences. So first, the HPA axis is still suppressed and doesn't usually recover right away. Although the speed of the recovery is dependent on the individual, the duration of the suppression and severity, it typically takes about 4 weeks up to 1 year. Because the HPA axis is suppressed, there will be no signals being sent to the adrenal gland to make more cortisol. On top of that, the exogenous corticosteroid has been discontinued. So overall, there is low cortisol in the body. This condition is known as adrenal insufficiency, and more severe form called adrenal crises. This is specifically known as secondary adrenal insufficiency as opposed to primary adrenal insufficiency or Addison's disease, where the adrenal glands are directly damaged and can't produce enough cortisol. Patients with adrenal insufficiency present with fatigue, weakness, because cortisol is needed for energy metabolism through gluconeogenesis. Nausea, and this is related to the cortisol regulation of the gastric acid. This nausea can unfortunately lead to decreased appetite and weight loss. Low blood pressure occur because normally cortisol regulates blood pressure by enhancing the effects of the epinephrine and norepinephrine. Hyponatremia because cortisol can regulate the release of ADH or antidiuretic hormone, and low levels of cortisol indirectly increases the ADH levels, leading to more water being retained in the body and a possible dilutional hyponatremia. Lastly, hypoglycemia, and we already understand why this occurs. Now, while adrenal insufficiency is more mild, chronic, and the body can still function and overcome the low cortisol, adrenal crises is a severe, acute, and a shock state for the body, and the body cannot do anything to fix the problem. These patients present with severe hypotension, shock, abdominal pain, dehydration, confusion, disorientation, and other symptoms seen in adrenal insufficiency. In order to reduce the risk of adrenal insufficiency and adrenal crises, we taper steroids. Let's learn how this helps. So this patient has been on prednisone 40 milligrams daily for 6 weeks to treat rheumatoid arthritis. Now, the team would like to stop. Patient has been taking the prednisone chronically and likely has a suppressed HPA axis. So we must taper to avoid the adrenal insufficiency, and we could divide the tapering into 3 parts. First is the initial rapid tapering. In patients on high doses of glucocorticoids, so usually over 20 milligrams per day, prednisone equivalent, the daily dose can be reduced by 10 milligrams at weekly intervals until a dose of 20 milligrams per day is reached. The rate of tapering is reduced once the patient is on 20 milligrams per day or less, with decrements of 5 milligrams every week till a dose of 10 milligrams per day is reached. Next phase of the tapering is the gradual tapering. When the patient is on a dose of 10 milligrams or less per day, prednisone equivalent, tapering should be done gradually in decrements of 2.5 milligrams every week till a dose of 5 milligrams per day is reached. And then we have the slow tapering. So once the patient is on a near physiological dose of cortisol, so about 5 milligrams per day, prednisone equivalent, tapering is done more slowly, so decrements of 1 milligrams per day until a dose of 1 milligram per day is reached. At week 11 in this case, if there are no signs of adrenal insufficiency, the corticosteroids can be stopped. Now, in certain institutions, they may do some testing to make sure that the HPA axis has fully recovered. The most widely accepted test for evaluation of the HPA axis is the ACTH stimulation test. An initial blood work is done to determine the patient's baseline cortisol level. After that, synthetic ACTH, also known as corticotropin, is injected, and then another blood test is done at 30 minutes and 60 minutes after the injection to determine the cortisol level. Cortisol levels above 18 microgram per deciliter is considered good and means the HPA axis is responding and working. You may see different cutoffs for the cortisol level post-injection depending on the lab assay utilized. If the cortisol level is less than this, that may be indicative of adrenal insufficiency. That will bring this video to an end. I hope you learned at least one thing. If you did, then make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave any comments down below. Thank you and take care.